Hi, this is Leslie with Simply Vegan, and today we're going to make a fruit pizza. Absolutely delicious, a little extra work, but well worth it if you have a special function going on that you really want to wow people with something delicious as well as healthy. So, let's start with our biscuit recipe. This is Dick's Biscuits from a friend of mine named Dick. We're going to start with a half a cup of warm water in a little cup, or you could do it in a measuring cup. We're going to add some sugar for the yeast to feed on. Now you could add 2 tablespoons of honey if you'd like to use that. I'm going to use sugar. I've got an organic unbleached sugar here, 1/4 of a cup. And then we're going to add our yeast, 1 teaspoon. This is of an instant yeast. I'm just going to stir it. Now the instant yeast, you really don't need to proof this spray, but if you're using a yeast that is not an instant yeast, you definitely need to proof the yeast this way. I'm just going to let that set for just a minute so you can see the way it's supposed to foam if you're using a non-instant yeast. Okay, in our bowl, we're going to measure 14 tablespoons of whole wheat flour. Now that sounds like a tedious job to measure out 14 tablespoons. So what we're going to do is measure out 1 cup of flour, and then we'll just subtract 2 tablespoons, and we'll be right where we need to be. So when you're measuring your flours, you want to kind of fluff them in. If you dig into the container, you get packed down flour, and it's hard to know how much flour you really end up by getting. So if you fluff it into your cup, and then just level it like this. Now remember, we're taking out 2 tablespoons worth. I'm just going to take out 2 tablespoons worth. Put that in my bowl. It's great to measure on a flexible mat like this because then you can just put your flour right back in your container. And if you make homemade bread with a bread machine, you also want to be fluffing your flour, and so this is a great way to get your flours fast and easy back into your container. All right, so we're also going to add to this 2/3 of a cup of white flour. I like to use an unbleached white flour. So we want 2/3 of a cup of the unbleached white. Just fluff that right in there. There we go, perfect. Now we're going to add 1/4 teaspoon of salt. This is Himalayan pink salt. You can use any kind of salt that you'd like to use. There it all is. We're just going to stir this a little bit in our bowl. Now you can see here that the yeast has a little bit of a foamy top on it. So we know that the yeast is good. Like I said, with an instant yeast, you really don't need to proof it. Can you get closer into the bowl with the camera? All right, we're going to go ahead and pour our water and yeast mixture in there. Get all the sugar out of there, out of the bottom. And then I'm also going to add 2 teaspoons of oil, just a small amount, and we're going to stir that up. Now, although this isn't 100% whole grain, it's nice to have some whole grain in your mix because it does give you some extra fiber in your dish. And it's nice to have the white because the whole wheat might be a little bit heavy, especially if people aren't used to eating a whole grain flour. Okay. If you use a bowl that has slanted edges like this, it's a little bit easier to work with so you don't have to come in through the top. And I'm just going to go ahead and just get it into a ball. I'm not going to really knead it here. Just get it into. And the reason I want to get it into a ball is so that when I roll it out on the cookie sheet, the edges will be smooth. Now, if it feels too sticky to you, you can go ahead and add just a tiny bit of flour to it, just a little bit, and just a pinch. Don't want a lot of flour on it because you don't want your crust to be white. around the edges. Okay, so I have a nice, soft, it's very soft ball of dough here. And my pizza pan, give it a spray. And now we're going to roll it out. Now you could roll it onto a piece of saran wrap and transfer it if you don't have a small rolling pin. Or you can use a small rolling pin, or you could even just press it into the pan. If it starts to stick on you, very, very lightly dust it with a little bit of flour, a little bit of the white flour, or you could even use the whole wheat flour to dust that too. And this is going to be relatively thin because the yeast is going to make it rise, and it'll rise almost to double. So we really don't want it to be too thick. And try to get it as even as you can so that you don't have high and low areas in your crust. Now this is not as smooth around the edge as I would like it to be, and I'm going to guess that's going to happen to you too. So we're going to fix that up here. Because your finished product, you want it to be beautiful. So you can just go ahead and work it gently with your fingers. And it may not be perfect, picture perfect, but this is not a cookie cutter dessert that we're doing that you'd buy at a grocery store. This is a homemade item which is going to have those characteristics of not exactly cookie cutter perfection. We can smooth that edge out just like that. Now, before you start doing this, make sure that you preheat your oven to 375 degrees. Make sure that that's right. Or 350 degrees. I can't remember which. I've already preheated it. But it will be in your printed recipe, so you'll have that there. Get your oven preheated. Now, we don't need to let this rise. It will rise a little bit in the oven. There we go. So there's our fruit pizza crust. Okay, I'm going to bake this, and then we're going to make the creamy topping to put on top, and then we're going to decorate it with beautiful fruit. Right, let me go put this in the oven. So here we are with our crust that came out of the oven. Now I use a home ground whole wheat flour, so it's a little coarser than the store-bought one, but this is about what it'll look like. If you're using a finer store-bought whole wheat flour, it will be a little bit smoother than this. But this is going to be buried anyway, so it's not a super deal anyway. I'm going to transfer this onto a prettier plate. And we're just going to put that aside while we make our creamy topping. I have a pinch of salt in here, a small pinch, a quarter of a cup of raw cashews. Now cashews may not necessarily be super clean, so put them in a bowl and run them under the water and kind of rub them around a little bit while the water's running, and then just drain them, and do that a couple of times until they're nice and clean. Put them into your blender, bullet, or food processor, whatever you're going to be using. And then we are going to add some soaked dried pineapple. Now the pineapple, I had rings like this. So I cut them into pieces. It came up, three rings came up to be about 2/3 of a cup of pineapple pieces. So if you only have diced dried pineapple, figure about 2/3 of a cup. And I soaked it in 1 cup of warm water minus 2 tablespoons of that water, and I replaced that with 2 tablespoons of lemon juice so we have a lemony flavor. If you want it to be vanilla flavor, leave it with the 1 cup of water and add 1 teaspoon of vanilla. Just going to put that into the blender bowl with the pinch of salt, the water, the cashews, and the pineapple. All right, we're going to snug the cover onto the blender bowl. And this has quite a bit of chunky things in it with the cashews and the dried pineapple. It has been softened some, but it still takes a while to blend this up. So while this blends, I'm going to go ahead and slice some banana slices. see, this is not thick enough to hold up very well on top of the fruit pizza crust. So I'm going to add a tablespoon of instant clear gel. If you do not have an instant food thickener of any kind, you can go ahead and add cornstarch to this and then just cook it on top of the stove, stirring it constantly until it thickens. But I have a product called Instant Clear Gel here today, which is a pre-cooked cornstarch, so it does not need to be cooked. So I've got 1 tablespoon of that I'm going to put in here. It takes 10 minutes to reach its maximum thickening capacity. So we're just going to go ahead and give that a little shake so it doesn't get hung up on the blades. And then we're going to re-blend for just a short time. All right, we'll shake that down off the blades and release that. And I'm just going to let this set for a minute while I show you what we're going to be putting on our fruit pizza. I washed some green grapes and some red grapes. Now the green grapes were huge, so I cut the ends off of those and I cut them into little penny shapes. And then we have some beautiful red grapes. I have some dried cranberries here. Of course, our banana. Then I went through my bags of almonds and walnuts and I looked for walnut halves that were about all the same size and almonds that didn't have anything like this on them. You want to save those to put in your cereal instead of on your fruit pizza. So try to get fruit and nuts that are attractive to look at. Then we also have some canned pineapple tidbits, some mandarin oranges, and these were canned as well, and some fresh blueberries. Now you'll notice that they're on a paper towel. Look through the can of mandarin oranges and take out the ones that are not broken, the ones that look the prettiest. And then wash your blueberries, and your pineapple tidbits can also go on the paper towel. And this is just so that it'll drain a little bit so that you don't have a lot of moisture on top of your fruit pizza. Okay, so we have our crust. Now you could use any kind of fruits that you want on this. You could use sliced kiwi. You could even use apple, but if you're going to use apple slices or chunks, you'll want to dip them in a water lemon juice dip for a little bit and then drain them well. And I wouldn't put them on the pizza too early. If you're going to have fruits that might turn brown on you, decorate your fruit pizza closer to when you're going to serve it. I've also even used dried blueberries on top when blueberries were not in season. If raspberries are in season, you can use fresh raspberries. There's no end to what you can do for creativity. And I enjoy making this particular dessert so much because God enjoys creation. And I think that's something that He has put in us, a desire and a great joy in creating beautiful food. So I love working with this type of a dish. All right, let's take a look at our clear gel thickened icing. Now it's not super thick. If it sat in the refrigerator a little longer, it would get a little thicker. But let me also say that you could use any type of creamy topping that you like on this. You could use vanilla pudding that you make out of tofu or soy milk or something like that. I'm going to add a recipe to the recipe posting here so that you can choose what type of filling that you would like to have on your fruit pizza. We'll just spread that as evenly as we can, leaving a little bit of room on the crust. Try to make that look nice and smooth if you can. And you can put it as thick or as thin as you like it, but just remember, if it's not thick enough, it's going to run over the edge and then it's not going to look pretty. So aim for beauty on this dish. There we go. Try to get that kind of even there so that the crust does not show through. All right, now we're ready for the fun part. We get to decorate this fruit pizza. So mandarin oranges are one of my favorite things to put on here because they are so beautiful. So I think I'm going to start around the edge with mandarin oranges. And when you're doing your fruit, the secret to making a really beautiful and tasty fruit pizza is to make sure that you put enough fruit on. Let's see. I want to make sure that I have enough of these mandarin oranges here. Go all around the edge. I can even space them a little bit if I'm not going to have enough. There's nothing to say that you can't rearrange a little bit if you need to. Just want to be careful not to, oh, it's going to work out just right, I think. Move this one over just a pinch. Oh, we could even fit one more in if we wanted. The more fruit you have, the tastier it's going to be. Okay, so there's our first round. Now I think we'll go ahead and put some grapes around there with nuts in between. So let's use almonds today. So we'll go ahead and put a grape and an almond. Grapes and almonds. Whoops. Let me just gently lift that off of there. There we go. An almond. If you can overlap, then go ahead and overlap because that will make it even more beautiful. If you spread the fruit out too much, you don't get as much fruit on there, of course, and it just really doesn't look as pretty. So let's get some more on here. This is a little bit more work to do than, you know, making a boxed cake and buying some icing on top of it, but it's healthier and it's beautiful and it shows that you care and that you love when you take a little extra time to do something special for somebody else. Not to say that you can't ever make a boxed cake, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that some things are just worth a little bit more extra effort and time. Okay. Are you already dreaming of things that you might be able to do with your fruit pizza? Things that you might think of that are creative, that you would enjoy putting on there? I think that sliced mango might even be delicious. Okay, now it didn't come out in the perfect number here, so let me just go like this, move it just a pinch, move everything over just a pinch, and get one last almond in there. There we go. All right, let's do a round of bananas all around the edge. Now the bananas, we're going to go ahead and actually overlap them. They don't add any color, but they sure are delicious. And you could cut them in a different shape if you wanted to. You might want to cut these in half moons or something. Let's see. And then that last one, make sure you tuck it just right there. We'll move that all out just a little bit. And let's put a row of blueberries on. Get that beautiful blue color right up there next to the white. This would be a great 4th of July special dessert to make. You could have the red, white, and blue on there. Try to get consistent sizes on your pizza. So don't have, you know, little tiny walnuts and then big huge walnuts right next to each other. Try to stay consistent. I know it's not going to be perfect, but when you look through your fruit, try to find things that are going to be close. There we go. All right, I think I'm going to put a layer of green grapes now. We'll kind of stand those up just a little bit around the edge. The more the merrier when it comes to the fruit. And, you know, I trimmed up these grapes. I cut off the ends so we wouldn't have any brown spots at all where the stems are. But everything that you trim off or anything that you have left over, just go ahead and make a fruit salad for your very next meal. Or put it in the refrigerator and have it the next morning with your cooked cereal. All right, what haven't we put on here? We haven't put any pineapple. So that will be our next. We'll put some of these pineapple tidbits on here. Pack it on. Pack it on. There we go. It's all about color and plenty of it. Now, I could put a walnut in the middle of that. I could put another grape in the middle. I think I like that color there. I could put a little handful of craisins. I don't know what that's going to look like. We can always dig them out. Let's just see what that would look like if we put a few dried cranberries in there. Oh, I think I like it. All right, and here we have it, a luscious fruit pizza. I hope that you'll really enjoy making this and sharing it with those you love. Have a great day. Eat for strength. So I wasn't really happy with the way my fruit pizza crust came out. I think that my flour mill is not working properly and the flour was really heavy, so I made another one. So here we are with another fresh baked fruit pizza crust, and this is really what it should look like. Let's just take a look here at the thickness of it. This is a little bit better. You can see right there about what the thickness should be for this. And this is soft and this is lovely. So now you know what it's supposed to look like.